I remember telling a friend of mine once that he should read Chainsaw Man. When he asked me what it was about, I told him it was about a guy who could turn into a chainsaw and then fight amalgamations of human fears. And then he said, "Oh, so it's just like Jujutsu Kaisen." And I thought, is it? A monster hunting franchise isn't exactly a unique concept. I would actually argue it's a tired concept. I think that all that can be said with those kinds of stories has already been said. Yes, I'm still angry that Gokuraku guy is bad now. 10 years from series like Tokyo Ghoul, Attack on Titan and Parasite, and 14 years from the best one, the theme of trying to navigate life while being something more than human is still an immensely popular kind of narrative. And it's not unreasonable to say that Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man are the current standout series in that area. So it's hardly surprising when my friend immediately jumped to that comparison. So while we can sit here and dissect themes and story beats between the two of them, I won't be doing that. Instead, I'll be looking at what many people consider to be a significant anchor point between these two series, that being Gojo Satoru and Makima. It's very simple to see why these two are often discussed together. They share many similarities, both are in a position of authority in their respective organizations, both have a young tag-along, and both have a stylistic emphasis on their eyes. They are definitely the poster children of their series. I remember one time I was waiting in line on a McDonald's in an Itoi Okudo I had wandered into, and I had heard two schoolgirls in front of me say, "Ah, Makima-san." And sure enough, when I looked, there was a woman dressed as Makima. Not in cosplay, she was just dressed like her, eating McDonald's with her family. On a separate night in Shibuya, I had seen two people dressed as Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru, playfully reenacting yaoi scenes to a group of excited friends. Whenever anyone tells me that they like Satoru, I always respond, "Well, I like Makima." And they always give me the same nod of understandment. They both clearly occupy the same space in our brains. I mean, Death Battle didn't make a video about Yuji and Denji. They made one about Makima and Satoru. Their gentle, calming demeanor that hides a ruthless, terrifying power changes us all into something strange. The type of person who would listen to 1 hour of labored breathing, or willingly seek out people to call them a dog. To many people, Satoru is daddy, and Makima is mummy. At this point, I fear that this change has become irreversible. Calling it fatherless or motherless behavior isn't enough. This is parentless behavior. But to normal people who have families that love them, you might struggle to see how Makima and Satoru are comparable outside anything superficial. If you've seen either show, you know that on a deeper level, Makima and Satoru are nothing alike. Makima isn't a mentor, she's a manipulator. Satoru isn't feared, he's beloved. If we're talking characters with a white and blue colour scheme to compare with Makima, that girl from the gambling show is far more like Makima than Satoru is. Of course, I understand that this is just for fun. It's harmless celebration of two popular characters who share a few similarities. But having thought about it for a long time, I think there's something here. Maybe Makima and Satoru are comparable, just not in a way that's obvious. Hear me out. In a lot of Fujimoto's work, there's this recurring shot, that being the characters sitting watching a movie. I've always rolled around in my head as to why Fujimoto likes this particular shot. There must be something he's trying to convey, I mean, he's used it so many times. During these panels, there's typically very minimal dialogue. Instead, the story is told through the characters' range of emotions as they react to what they are seeing. Movies are, of course, designed to elicit some kind of reaction out of you. So in a way, when you sit down to watch a movie with family, friends, or strangers, you're also exposing something personal about yourself. Everyone is. We are inadvertently showing each other what makes us laugh, what makes us cry, and what we are scared of and how we interpret things. What I'm saying is, movies are a good way to judge someone's character, and in some cases, a movie can show us what someone truly desires. This is what happens in Chainsaw Man. Denji goes on a date with Makima and the two of them spend all day watching movies. During each sitting, Denji notes how Makima doesn't react to pivotal scenes the same as everyone else. While the rest of the audience is laughing and crying, Makima sits stone-faced. Everyone in the theatre is experiencing this unified emotional wave, but Makima's stillness is all that Denji can think about. And eventually, Makima does react. at a very specific moment of two people hugging. A single tear rolls down her face. And I think this says a lot about Makima, that there is something that this mysterious, omnipotent woman wants, and that's human connection. But as we later find out, this is something that she will never be able to get, because Makima is not human, she's a devil. By her nature, she will never comprehend human emotions and how to cultivate feelings into something that resembles love. She can only seem to bastardize them into malicious control. From this, we can understand her affinity for dogs. Give them food, some affection, and a walk every now and again, and in return they give you unconditional love. It's rather straightforward. But this approach doesn't work on people. Well, it does, but not for very long, and with disastrous results. So Makima is left yearning because of the only thing she can't fully understand: how other people feel. Makima is lonely, which, funnily enough, is a very human thing to be. So how does being sad in a movie theatre relate to Gojo Satoru? Well, like I said, bear with me. Satoru was blessed with an obscene amount of power from birth. In the Gojo's past arc, we see how being the strongest was the result of an ambition from his youth. Ambition that made him arrogant and aggravating to be around. But to be honest, what teenage boy doesn't think they're better than everyone else? But none of this bothered him, because Satoru didn't care about the opinions of those he thought of as weak. All he needed was himself, or that's what he believed anyway. During the events surrounding the death of Riko Amane, an irreparable change occurred within Satoru. During a fight, Satoru had ascended to something like godhood, further fueling his ego and widening the gap between himself and everyone. He would admit that he's grown past caring about the lives of those he was meant to be protecting. Why would he? He's the strongest. While this was happening, his long-term friend Suguru had become disillusioned with the jujutsu world. Suguru's animosity towards the people he was meant to protect reached a boiling point. He didn't just stop caring about their well-being, he now actively wanted them dead. This ideologically went against everything the two friends had been brought up to believe. Satoru tried to make his friend see reason, but his words did little. Suguru had already made up his mind. Before the two parted ways, Suguru questioned Satoru's very existence, and the power that he holds so dear. Even with all that power, Satoru couldn't stop the one person he saw as equal from leaving his life, in front of a KFC. Into his adulthood, nothing had emerged that could measure up to him, or that's what he believes anyway. His power is known throughout all of the jujutsu world, and while he is respected, his personality makes it difficult to get close to him. And outside of jujutsu, what does Satoru do? I mean, he doesn't even have any hobbies simply because he's too good at everything. Instead, the only pleasure he seems to derive from is sadistic pleasure, by torturing cursed spirits. Maybe that is a hobby. In a weird way, Satoru had completely stagnated after his confrontation with Suguru. Throughout heaven and earth, Gojo Satoru is the honored one, but he's also the only one. Kenjaku says that Satoru is in his element when he's alone, something I don't think was ever his intention to be. At the point between life and death, Satoru confines how isolating it is to have unrivaled strength, and having no one to understand you. He leaves the world regretful that he couldn't be the one to let Sukuna reach full power, to show him that he understands what it's like to be at the top, and really how lonely it is, and that he really wished that Suguru stayed with him. Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man in their own way show the importance of connection. Jujutsu Kaisen's is shown through acknowledgement and recognition, that the hard work you put in is worthy of praise, by someone who's been down that same path as you. And Chainsaw Man's is more physical, like hugs, kisses, and the symbolic act of literally consuming someone to truly understand them. So yeah, Makima and Satoru are comparable. Makima and Satoru both suffer from their own forms of isolation. Satoru is the loneliness of God, and Makima is the loneliness of the devil.